are speaking in the post-conservative era. We're now in this new 5-year Labour era where Labour have
Indeed.
a majority, but I'm sure everyone is heartily sick and tired of politics, so I'm not going to make any comment on there. Other than to
Mm,
say, yeah, well, there we go. It was to be expected. But yeah, no, I saw some excellent coverage of the Mining Journal event that you attended
indeed.
over the last weekend, Mark, and you interviewed Rick Rule, of course, which the great thing is when you hear Rick Rule talk, there will always be some little gems that he'll come out with. He's a guy that's been advertising across many market cycles over many years, and with that comes perspective. And I think
Mm.
he's a hugely intelligent guy, but also a very pragmatic character and a very sort of practical investor too. So it was good to see some very interesting stuff. Highly recommended.
Yeah, well, thank you. It was a good little trip actually, just over the weekend then into Monday. Following on from the podcast I did with Rick a week or two ago when he said come along to the Mining Journal. So yeah, you take him up on that offer when Rick makes that offer, and it obviously tied in well with Sean Wade being there from Power Metal Resources as well to actually get an interview with them. With the two of them, which I think is great, because everyone knows Rick Rule. If in this space, everyone should know of Rick Rule. I know 10 years ago I knew about him. Didn't think I'd ever be interviewing him, but to actually sit him down, well, stand up with him. It was an interview standing up and have a chat with Sean, company who he holds a decent percentage of. I thought was really good and really good of him to do that as well, because he's obviously not making stock recommendations, but that was quite a specific interview on why he likes Power Metal Resources and how he's going to hold Sean to account. So yeah, I enjoyed that. Really nice guy, and his speech, his keynote, I should say, was pretty good. I think I summarised that in sort of 9 minutes there, but a lot of as you say, gems he comes out with there, the things to think about. And obviously he's very bullish on the sector. So yeah, nice little trip meeting Rick. Hopefully that's the first of perhaps many more to come of Rick's appearances on Stockbox. He did also invite me to Florida, which I believe the Power Metals team are heading out this weekend to Florida to his Rule Symposium, but won't be able to make that this year. But maybe next year, trip to Florida. Apparently, he's timed it very well, because he's telling me that in the past it wasn't in Florida. I forget where it was. It was somewhere else. But he said that after sort of afternoon on day 2 and on day 3, it was quite quiet, and he couldn't work out why. And then he realised that people were enjoying the weather and going out golfing and drinking. So he moved it to Florida, because it's too hot. Literally, you can't leave the hotel because of the air conditioning. So it forces people to stay in the conference for the 3 days because they can't do anything else. Even though it's such a beautiful place, it's just too hot and humid. So yeah, he got that one right. But
That's
yeah.
a very good strategy. Actually, come to beautiful Florida, and of course everyone thinks, "Wow, that's going to be a fantastic trip." And then you get there, and it's well, I'd love to lie by the pool, but I lay out there for 10 minutes. I'm now pouring in sweat, so I think I'll go back inside. Oh, there's a conference on. I may as well attend that. Yeah, good strategy.
Exactly.
Good strategy.
Yeah, good strategy indeed. So yeah, I'll be following that because, of course, you can get it online as well. Lots of
Yeah.
material there. So yeah, that should be good. And obviously, Sean is going out as well. They'll have a stand there, so it'll be good to see how they get on with the interest over from the American investors. But anyway, today we're going to cover a few different mining companies who've had significant development recently. Altona Rare Earths, Sovereign Metals, big news there from them, and Metals One as well, who are expecting that mineral resource update anytime soon, really. But Altona first, Alan, it got the raise away, and a bit of access to money through loans. They've got the access to capital. I spoke to Cedric, and I think most of it's going to be used to advance the copper projects, really, and also applying it to Monte Mwambe to attract interest from a strategic investor. I know that's what Cedric said before. He wants to get that sort of onto a strategic investor, so they can focus the monies they raise from the markets on the copper, on the Botswanan project. But anyway, you can tell us all about Altona.
Indeed. Well, Altona, of course, we have discussed many times. Of course, you and I interviewed Cedric on the Market Musings a few months ago. But the company's come an awful long way, and although the share price currently trading at 1.3p may not necessarily reflect that, the company has made tremendous progress under Cedric's leadership over the past year. And of course, the company was set up initially to acquire quality rare earths projects. They looked at several, settled on Monte Moambe, and of course, now has a maiden JORC mineral resource estimate of 30.6 million tons at 2.42% total rare earth oxides, and there are high grade zones there, and of course the quality of the asset has been long suspected. I think Cedric, of course, worked there previously for Sagem Fluorspar when the asset was a fluorspar mine, but of course the rare earths were discovered at that point, and of course it's developed and come on since that time. But of course, in this day and age, you have to diversify as a company in mining. You have to really present a balanced risk reward opportunity to investors, and I think there was a feeling, certainly from Cedric and his team, that perhaps just the focus on Monte and Moambe, the single asset, wasn't offering enough, as I think has been reflected in the share price performance over the past year. So, of course, given copper's value, given the fact that it has broken to new highs, it's retraced its steps a bit now, but given copper's importance as a critical mineral on every level, for every application, that's clean technology, of course, electric vehicles, and a multitude of other applications, it does mean that Altona's involvement in copper really just broadened its investment appeal. And indeed, April this year saw the company acquire an option to acquire the Sisana copper project. Of course, these are based in Botswana. We know a lot about the region through other companies. Of course, we mentioned Power Metal. Of course, Power Metal have the association with Kavanga Resources, who are operating in that area too. And the Sisana copper project is located just close to major copper and silver discoveries, including the Khoemacau copper silver mine. Also, of course, other companies operating in the area include ARC Minerals and Galileo Resources. And at that time, the company also appointed David Cattrall, the veteran geologist, as a copper consultant to the company. David Cattrall is working with Kavango on their assets and other companies too. He's highly respected in the area. And then, of course, really what has I think secured Altona's future is the fact that the company's come to market and it's been able to raise money. It issued 39 million new shares at 1 penny to raise 390,000. And in fact, they've added an extra 4,000 to that from a single investor. So I think that book is still open. If other investors choose to come in, there may be an opportunity for them to do that. But it also secured a further 900,000 in loans to the company from Tricata Limited. And of course, having a major investor like this on board really has changed the landscape for Altona. It's now able to progress its Monte Moambe, further progress that, but also it can complete the acquisitions of both Sisona and also the other copper project, Kabompo South. The company has plans going forward under Cedric to carry out an exploration program at the Sisona copper project. That would, of course, be under the guidance and alongside David Cattrall. And the aim of the company is, by the end of this year, it's going to identify a number of drill targets and exploration boreholes. So that's going to be very important for the group. Meanwhile, of course, Monte Moambi will be ticking over in the background, but the company is now fully funded, and it will probably have access to further monies from individual investors going forward to progress Monte Moambi and perhaps look at other opportunities too. But either way, Cedric's stated intention to broaden the risk appeal of the company and the asset base that it has is certainly starting to pay off. Shares as say 1.3p, that's down from 5.7p. So the company still has a market cap of just 1.1 million, which for the assets it now owns and for the money it's just raised is ludicrous. I mean, it's not even valued at the money it's just raised, which to me is a real head scratcher. The company is now well structured. It's funded for all the exploration work it needs to undertake. So at some point, this valuation gap, and there is a considerable valuation gap, it will close, and we will see investors take advantage of it. Indeed, I think that there were several TR1 notifications throughout the year. Mohammed Karashi owns 3.45%, and also a certain Jennings has now built the shareholding up. He's originally owed 1.9%, went up to 7.2%, and then just most recently has gone up to 8.9%. And I believe that could be in connection with some promotional activities, but I'm speculating there, so I won't go into too much more detail. But anyway, in summary, Altona is now fully funded to progress Sasona. It's fully funded to progress Monte Moambi, and we're going to hear news, particularly on Sasona, about the drill targets it will identify, and also any further collaborations that may be lined up before too long.
Indeed. So looking forward to seeing that work starting. This year effectively on the copper projects. But it's good to see Altona diversifying, a little bit there. I do like the rare earth project for sure. I really do, and I think that's going to be very, very good for the company in the future. There's obviously risk associated with it, and I just don't think the market really gets rare earths at the minute. But also, I don't think a lot of industry players actually get it yet. I still think it's a relatively young commodity to understand, and the metallurgy is very, very important. From what I understand from rare earths, is they are actually not that rare, but the actual metallurgy is tricky, or can be. And I think that's the real key. And again, that's what Cobra are doing. The metallurgy, checking that metallurgy, making sure it's economical. But if it is with Altona, then they've got a great project there. You just look at the scoping study. I can't believe that company's worth just over £1 million. But still, it's good to diversify as well. Not all eggs in one basket.
It is, yeah. And on the subject of rare earths, rare earths are abundant, which is therein lies the irony. But they're abundant because they appear they appear sparsely. So if you take a particular piece of ground, you'll probably have some rare earths or traceable rare earth elements within it. But it's where those rare earth elements are collected together in abundance. That's where obviously the value lies. But then, of course, you've got the challenge of extracting, and there are numerous methods to do that. Of course, we've heard about ionic clays and the absorption process and leaching the clays out, and it's really a question of meeting the challenge from each project. Monte Moambi, of course, is well known, and Cedric and his team have been working there for many years, so they have a plan to extract those rare earths. But of course, it's whilst the demand isn't in doubt. Currently, the supply is primarily from China, so there will always be demand to secure new sources of rare earth elements, and of course it's the extraction process. But I think in order to make Monte Moambi viable, the company needs to be able to demonstrate progress in other projects as well. And I think this is the challenge that a lot of small money companies are facing at the moment. But Altona, I think, you know, just at this moment in time, as an investment proposition, it's just raised 1.3 million, and the market capitalization of the company is 1.1 million. So I think that tells you all you need to know. The company is fully funded to complete its exploration commitments and progress its projects, and that I think at this point it offers exceptional value. Probably one of the lowest valued miners listed on the London market at present, but with I think projects that are more current than most. I think we can certainly attribute that to them.
Indeed, yes, indeed. Well, that's good to get a catch up on Altona, Alan. So, Sovereign Metals, then, very significant news this week.
Well, what a week for Sapan,
Yeah.
Frank Eager, and the team. I mean, it's Sovereign has the project has slowly evolved over the past year, and I say slowly because I don't think it's possible to articulate the sheer scale of this asset. It's this vast area in Malawi near the town of Lilongwe, and the photographs on the company's social media give some idea of the scale. There are pictures, some good pictures of the pilot plant in action there. That's actually sort of being built and is underway at the moment. But the asset was originally a rutile asset. Of course, rutile is an oxide mineral composed of titanium dioxide, and of course titanium dioxide has a multitude of applications, both in pigments. It's the brilliant white in brilliant white paint. It's used in steel and copper alloys, synthetic gems, porcelain, glass coloring, welding. I mean, the list goes on and on. And the rutile supplies around the world are very rare indeed. The world's second largest producer currently is Sierra Rutile, which of course is based in Sierra Leone, and the Aluga asset there has 715 million tons. Sovereign's Cassia asset, that's the name of the project, has 1.8 billion tons, and it's growing because as they have scoped the project out, they have discovered that the mineralization spreads out in all directions. So it's north, south, east, west, and a map that was published recently by the company well illustrates that. On top of that, of course, the asset is highly prospective for graphite, and of course the graphite the graphite the company is extracting, of course. We know that in battery grade graphite, graphite makes up 40% of the weight and the constitution of modern batteries, and that it's a critical material for that. Every electric vehicle, for example, requires between 40 and 60 kilograms of graphite, and that's roughly 40 times the amount of lithium that a battery requires. So it gives you some idea of the importance. But as with all graphite projects, and we've discussed other companies that are mining and producing graphite, the quality of the graphite varies greatly. So some graphite assets, the grade will be lower, it won't be suitable for batteries and all the rest of it. So of course it won't sell, it won't command the same sort of value in the marketplace. But onto where the company has progressed to. So of course we saw the scoping study this year confirm a net present value at Cassia of $861 million. The EBITDA life of mine at 161 million, and then of course the project has expanded with additional sort of discoveries across the new areas of mineralization discovered to the north and the south. The company's also brought in quite a few additional staff in to help develop and build the team. Frank Igor was, of course, appointed managing director in January this year, and they also brought in a team to work alongside the farmers in the region to help them produce a sustainable maize crop. And this is part of the new ESG commitment that corporates have nowadays. And of course, the historically Africa and other countries have they're littered with old mines from companies that before the age of social responsibility and ESG had come in. These toxic pools were left behind by the miners, and the landscape wasn't returned to its previous condition. Of course, today a company goes in and it mines something like ASEA, then everything has to go back to the way it was before, and at the same time they have to work with the community, invest into the community, and of course get the community involved. Some of the youngsters now growing up in Lilongwe will end up working on the project, and that'll be their career. So it has so many implications when you take on a project of this size. But the company throughout the first part of the year, we heard in February that drilling, I mentioned the additional mineralization, 8-kilometer mineralization extension to the south, open at strike and depth, and also further identified some 20 kilometers to the north in March. During that time, the graphite samples that have been taken were taken to a lab, and an additional person was appointed with many years' experience in working with graphite and batteries to oversee the process of testing the battery and testing the natural flake graphite. And it's confirmed, or Dr. Surinder Garg, that was his name, that it was confirmed that the graphite is of the highest quality, is of battery grade. So of course that is added fuel to the fire. Go back to last summer, and of course Rio Tinto came in as a cornerstone investor and invested $40 million. They took a stake in the company. They had options at that time to increase their stake to just under 20%. And indeed, what has made the news this week, and it's been all over the news despite the election, it's made the Times, it's made the Standard, it's made so many other publications. Rio, of course, invested a further 9.7 million into the company, exercising those options. It means it now has 19.7% of the company. And of course, what that triggers is, well, are Rio going to make a bid for the company? What's going to happen? Well,
yeah.
There are several schools of thought on this. I mean, it's highly likely that could happen, that they could exercise their stake. But in addition, of course, there's speculation across a number of other publications that Sovereign could just work with Rio. Rio's obviously working alongside. Part of what Rio brings to the table is his expertise in bringing a project like this to fruition, bring it into production. So Rio may just remain a shareholder. And some publications are speculating that Sovereign, given the sheer scale of CASIA and the sheer size of CASIA, could become the next Fortescue Metals. So we could see a multi-billion pound-dollar transformation in terms of the market capitalization. Now,
really?
already we've seen Sovereign. It's now jumped up from up to just under 400 million Aussie dollars. Of course, that equates to about 230 million pounds sterling. But I mean, for a project of this scale, I mean, we've got to be talking in the billions. It's just huge. And
you reckon? So even for 200 million at the minute, there's still like a potential massive upside here.
Oh goodness, yeah, absolutely. This, as I said right at the start, the sheer scale of CASIA it dwarfs anything else. I mean, 1.8 billion tons is over double the size of Sierra Rutar's project, and that's just on what was scoped out. So once the drilling results and the assays from the areas that are open at strike to the south and to the north, once those are brought in, that will further add to the mineral resource estimate and, of course, the net present value, which I think incorrectly I said was 800. It's actually 1.6 billion. So that just gives you an idea of the scale. Now, already we've number of major offtake agreements with Hascore, the welding company, Mitsui, Chemours, the French chemical giant. Eric Sprott, of course, holds just under 12% of the company as well. So you've got a lot of major shareholders in this company, and they're just. I think this project is going to grow and grow. With Rio's expertise, I mean, Rio could just sit back as a shareholder now and just see its shares rise, or it could go for full blown takeover. But I think looking at Rio's strategy, of course, ironically speaking to Rob Marston, the chief executive of Anglesey Mining, he formerly worked on the Rio Tinto investment board, and Rio is it's an active investor, and it will actively invest into companies, and it'll buy in and it'll sell out. It's not necessarily so much about buying out projects outright, but the fact that it's exercised its options now and it's bought those shares now at the current price, I think gives an indication that it's one of two things. Is Rio going to open its checkbook and make the acquisition, or will it just hang on, provide all the resources as a strategic investor and reap the rewards? If it doesn't take Sovereign out, I think the assets and the resource that Sovereign now has, we are going to see this evolve into a multi-billion-dollar company. There's no doubt about it, because I think all the boxes have been ticked. The pilot plant's underway at the moment. So obviously there are certain things that have got to be confirmed. The DFS will have to be completed, but I think we're pretty much there, and I don't think a company with Rio's experience in the markets would have made that move without being pretty certain of the outcome. So it's a really exciting juncture, and if you're not in Sovereign yet, you should be.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Alan. I actually looked at that the other day and I thought, I could have got in. If you'd have got in a couple of months ago, you'd have doubled your money already. Doesn't mean it's not going to go higher, obviously, but it's always that sort of thing of am I buying on a short-term peak? I mean, generally, I think I would agree. It's looking very good, isn't it, for a long-term hold, and given the backing there again of Rio. And it's just entering an exciting point. You think back, I don't want to compare different projects, but during this phase of sort of development of a processing plant, that's the exciting phase, isn't it? You've got the backing there, you've got a resource, and now you're actually building it. Stuff's actually happening. It's not just barren land with some drill rigs moving around. There's actually some really serious stuff happening now, which is great. It makes it much more interesting and exciting to follow. I think Sovereign could certainly be here for a very long time. And it could be one of those stocks that you do buy now, and in years to come it is worth billions, or it's bought into the house of Rio, for example, and your shares get moved over to Rio when you're sitting with a little nice position in Rio. You get your dividend every year. It's great when you see these things happen. But Sovereign looks like one of the better ones for that, for sure. When you look at the market as a whole, what could actually go into that? The tree, the big oak tree, whenever all the acorns fall. Sovereign looks like it could be one of those ones.
I think the scale of the project. I mean, I'll just go back on those numbers again. So, the actual. The NPV number is currently $1.6 billion after tax. So the current mineral resource estimate is 17.9 million tons of rutile at just over 1%. So same grade as Sierra rutile at less than half of that. 24.4 million tons of graphite at 1.32%. 415 million average annual EBITDA with a 64% margin, 25 years life of mine. But the 25-year life of mine would only mine 30% of the current no mineralization. So we're open to strike to the north, we're open to strike to the south. Those numbers are going to grow. If the mineralization is the same at the same level, those numbers are going to grow. And then you've got a company that's just going to exponentially grow with it because when you've got a project that scale, you have to put a pilot plant somewhere, you have to put a production facility somewhere. They've also, of course, improved the rail link as well. So the Malawi government have invested into that. And this is very much a company working in tandem with the government. It's the even a couple of years ago, the president of Malawi was talking about CASIA to the UN and talking about the scale of the opportunity and how it was going to change Malawi as a country. So that gives you some idea of the scale of this thing. So yeah, I did think Rio were going to make a bid, but now I have to say I think given the scale of this, I'm actually siding with those investment houses that are looking at sovereign as the next Fortescue because Rio can just sit back. It's got nearly 20% of the company, so it's going to earn, if the shares double, quadruple, multi-bag from this point, then they're going to do extremely well out of it. But of course, they're providing all that resource and the assistance to sovereign in the process. So yeah. Very exciting times.
Indeed. Well, good stuff. So let's finish off with Metals One, shall we, Alan?
Metals One, yeah. Yes, indeed. So Met One, of course, we spoke about Met One recently. This is so Met One was set up really to take advantage of the EU and its drive to through the Critical Minerals Act to secure at least 10% of its critical mineral supply locally, i.e. within Europe, by the year 2030. And that's a pretty tall order. I mean, that's only 6 years away. So we've got a number of companies working to secure this. And of course, this is all based on, China, the companies are trying to break China's stranglehold on the critical minerals market at the moment. We've seen it in the US with gold metals with their tungsten asset. We talked about graphite just now. We've got Blanco Resources with their graphite asset. This is so many operations around the world are seeking to break that China stranglehold. So of course Metals One was set up, IPO'd last year, came to market at 5p with a market cap of 10.5 million. Several European brownfield battery metal projects, the Finland Black Schist project, where the company has initially 100% ownership, and Black Schist is adjacent to the Talvivaara mine, which is Europe's largest operating mineral mine. At that stage, an inferred mineral resource estimate of 28.1 million tons of Talvivaara style deposits of nickel, cobalt, copper, and zinc. And then the second project in Norway, the brownfield Rana project, where it's got an 80% non-operating interest that's operated by the miner Kingsrose, which is an ASX listed company. So the past year has been a process of testing, exploration, sampling, and then of course assays back from the labs, and through to April this year, we saw both the chairman Alistair Clayton buying shares in the company in the open market. Alistair Clayton buying shares at 1.06p, and Jonathan Owen, the CEO, buying shares at 1.5p, and also shares at 1.4p. And then in May, we had news on the Black Schist mineral resource estimate, which the company said was expected to underpin the project preliminary economic assessment numbers. The company also raised a further £895,000 at a penny to continue the development of Black Schist, but that money raise also allowed for the termination of the Gunsynd farming agreement, and it also funds from here on a drill program, and the wherewithal to increase the resource upgrade and the mineral resource estimate from, as I say, the current 28.1 million tons. So with that Gunton farm in termination, it paid Gunton 250,000 in cash, and shares has got the option to do that. At the same time, we also had the assay results back from the Altona P5 asset. The companies, a bit like other companies we've spoken about recently, measured twice, cut once. It's going to complete chemical assays for all the mineralized intersections in order to generate new or more accurate mineral resource estimate. The preliminary economic assessment works are due to be commissioned later this year. That was announced, and then of course with the finals that were announced a week or so ago, the company announced that it had engaged Mining Plus to complete the mineral resource estimate for the Altona P5 project at Black Schist asset. We also heard that Kings Rose, of course, have started the season at the Rana project. They're undertaking mapping. They're aiming to build on the existing knowledge, and also to identify additional drill targets to those they already have. And then, of course, the company also has undertaken a capital reorganization to reduce the nominal value of the company's existing ordinary shares. They've subdivided into one new share at a penny and one deferred share at 0.009p. So that process has now been completed. It doesn't affect shareholdings at all at present, but it's a logistical exercise to structure the company for future activities going forward. But where Met1 is now, of course, with trading just below a penny. We've got this minerals resource estimate due out from Mining Plus very soon, and I'm sure once that's out, that's going to be the benchmark, and Jonathan and the team can progress from there, and we'll hopefully be hearing more from Kings Rose as well about the development of the Rana project.
Indeed, yes, indeed. And I'm looking forward to seeing that news come out on the PEA there. That's going to be a significant point. And it looks like this project, as Jonathan said, is more of a development project rather than an exploration project. And looking at the neighbour there, you can kind of see exactly what they're trying to replicate. There was a special feature that we did with Jonathan about 2 weeks ago, which really dives into black schists, what they are, and more about their deposit and what they're going to do to try and exploit that. So they're at a very good, significant point in that development, getting that study out. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I think that's only a week or 2 or 3 away. It can't be far away now, and I think hopefully that will be a bit of a turning point for the company. When you start to see the numbers there, you can't deny them, can you? So, looking forward to seeing how that turns out. Well, thank you, Alan. That's a bit longer than usual, but we've covered a lot of detail there, Altona, Sovereign and Metal as one. So thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you, Mark. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programmes at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.